Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now let's give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Al.
My name's Al. I'm an alcoholic. How you guys doing? Was Jenny cool or not? I wish she could have finished her talk. I got caught up with it there. It's nice being here at Malibu. I really like coming out here. I have a lot of friends here, and I'd give my friend there, Greg, a cake. What are we going to talk about? Should we talk about drinking? Well, I like drinking. I was talking to this friend of mine a few days ago, and his mother had cancer or something of the liver, and from drinking, and she couldn't stop. And I said, "Well, what is she drinking?" And she says, "Well, she drinks Thunderbird." Well, I knew immediately this lady had class, you know what I mean? Because that was my juice. I loved the bird. They used to call me Al, you know, the boy and his bird, you know what I mean? That was that, you know, the flying chicken. You know, but I never really, I didn't start out that way. I didn't start out drinking that way. I started out not drinking because I remember I would belong to this car club of guys, and I used to ask them, "Why do you guys drink? I don't know why you guys drinking all the time," when I was like 15, 16 years old. But what happens is that when I was 17, I started drinking, and it just did it for me. What happened is I just couldn't, the first time it goes back to girls, you know. The first time I made a pass at a girl, I was 13 years old, and I asked her if I could put my arm around her, and she said no. And so, you know, that did that, you know what I mean? And so I just figured, forget about it, you know. So it went on for about another 4 years, about 3 more years, and then this buddy of mine, realizing my dilemma, he fixed me up with this, I remember her name was Shirley. She was a redhead. And we went to it was living in Arcadia then, we went to the Live Oak Drive-In. And he's rolling, you remember those old days, and I don't know if you remember, but I mean, there was double date days, and he's rolling around in the front seat with his girlfriend, and I'm in the back seat there with mine, just sitting up looking at the movie, pretending I'm looking at the movie, you know what I mean? And every once in a while, I was sitting there and looking at her out of the side of my eye, and every once in a while she hit me with her knee, and my head would just go, you know, I was just like ready to explode in the back seat there, you know. And never mind about feelings. When you're talking about, just forget about feelings, you know. I mean, I had testosterone rolling around all over my body, you know what I mean? I was just freaking out. I was like 16 years old. I had pimples on my face the size of this can, you know what I mean? And I felt totally inadequate, and I had such a judgment against myself to where I was just saw myself as being such a less than person, you know what I mean? And I was just just a mess. And I remember my dad coming up and telling me, and my nickname was Fonzie, you know, he'd come up and said, Fonzie, he says, these are the happiest days of your life. And I said, oh, shit, you know. Gotta be kidding. You know, and so I was, and you know, when you have a self-esteem problem, one of the symptoms of having a self-esteem problem is you can't present yourself to the universe. Because the reason I couldn't present myself, that we can't present ourselves to the universe, is because we are unworthy. And what makes me unworthy to present myself to the universe is the way I see myself. So I only have one alternative. That's to be cool. You gotta be cool. You know, you can't be who you are, you know what I mean? Isn't that a bitch? Everybody's busy being fucking cool, you know? And so when you're cool, when you're 16 years old, how's your cool? You got your collar up like this, you know? Oh man, hey, I mean, remember, they'd say like, what's happening, man? What's happening? And that makes sense because we really didn't know what was happening, you know? But that was like, and we're talking about like 1950, 49 and 50. And so I'm going out to the drive-in with this girl, right? I got my motorcycle jacket on, collar up. I just started smoking because that's a cool thing to do. And I'm sitting there blowing smoke in her face, letting her know how cool I was, you know? So we go on out there and we park underneath this tree, and this buddy of mine, his name was Gordon Burton was his name. I mean, he was like a brother to me. And I got out from, we got up there, and he told me to get out of the car, and he handed me a blanket and a bottle of Garrett's California White Port. And we went out and sat underneath this tree, and this girl took this bottle of wine, and she unscrewed it, and she tipped it up, and she held it up for a long time. And then she put it down. Now, I'm cool. Collar up, puffing away like a fire engine. So I grabbed that bottle, and I tilted up. I couldn't let her drink more than me. Then the next thing you know is I don't remember putting that bottle down, but I had my arms around her, and I was talking shit 100 miles an hour, you know what I mean? That was it. What time do I stop? 25 after? 29 after. Okay, Blair. So that was it. That handled it for me. At the age of 17, I started drinking. And I gave it the best shot I possibly could, you know. I gave it the best shot I possibly could. I went all the way, and you really don't have to do it, but you can if you want to. I got to go, I found Alcoholics Anonymous in the Army. See, it was the Salvation Army. You know, I mean, you don't have to go there, you know what I mean? You don't have to go, but you can if you want to. You know what I mean? I mean, I had guys come up to me. I'd go to meetings, guys come up snibbling to my, bad guy to snibble to me. Particularly come up, I don't know if I can make it. I mean, I'd have to live in the streets. I'd say, oh? You know what I mean? I remember the last place I paid rent at when I was paying rent. My rent was $36 a month. And I couldn't make the rent. So what I did is I subleased part of my room to somebody else, you know what I mean? And the two of us couldn't make the fucking rent, you know what I mean? And so it happened, this is in Hawaii. This is where I got sober, was in Hawaii. I couldn't have gotten sober in California because of my family. I couldn't get sober around my family, you know, because I just couldn't do it. I mean, my wife is the same way. I mean, you couldn't have gotten sober in Connecticut, could you? No way, Jose, huh? No. Okay. But but I just couldn't do it. It just so happened that way, you know, because my mother and father was such a strong force in my life, you know, and I wanted so much to be liked by them. You know what I mean? Let me tell you, my dad loved me the best he could. You know, he loved me the best he could. You know, he gave me a lot of bad information, but he believed a lot of bad information for himself. He wasn't mean, he was just busy being who he was. You know, he was busy being who he was. I remember when I made my amends to him. I went up and I sat there. It was one evening, I went over to the house and I sat there and I talked to him. And we must have talked for about 2 hours. And when I got finished, I said everything. And how you make them, why amends are important is because what they do is they allow you to complete relationships. Because unless we complete our relationships, we go looking for other people to complete them with. You know what I mean? In other words, unless I completed the relationship with my dad, I'd go looking around, forming relationships with other men in my life that are like my dad's, trying to complete it with them. See? And so what happens is, I remember I went over and talked to my dad. And after 2 hours sitting there talking to him, and he said, Fonzie, he says, you know what? He says, I'm never going to forgive you. See? But, you know, that's all right. Because I said my relationship with him is complete, because what I got to do is say everything that was in my heart and everything I had done. And once we say everything that's in our heart and everything that's there is left to say, once we have everything we have left to say to the other person, there's only one thing left to say, and that's, I love you. See? That's, I love you. See? And that, I did the same thing with my mother. I did the same thing with my mother, and it worked out. It wasn't as, my mother, though, was totally supporting and totally loving, and always has been. See? And perhaps that's why when I talk about my particular higher power, I talk about God wouldn't, I talk about that God, she created me good, never changed her mind. See, I look at God from a female point of view, because I can feel that it's totally loved, totally supported. See? I've been sober now for 36 years. See, and so over that 36 years, over that period of time, you have look, it says God could have sought, so I had to find a higher power for myself, because there's no other power that can relieve the obsession but a belief in a power greater than myself. See? And I had to find that. See? I had to find that liberty. I had to find that freedom. See? Because there's no liberty and there's no freedom outside of that. See, as long as I believed, when I came in, God was a Catholic. See? And I figured that I never had any choice. And after I was sober a year, I found out that God wasn't a Catholic. How many people in this room are not Catholics and are sober? Raise your hand. Now, if God was a Catholic, there would be no hands up. You know what I mean? Only Catholics would be sober. Come to find out that God wasn't even a Christian. So all of a sudden, what happened is it opened up for me to begin to explore, to find my own particular higher power. See, I had to find my own particular higher power. And how I did that, I was getting, you're talking about all the time that people had a good time in the 60s and 70s. Getting sober in the 60s was incredible, because there was an enormous spiritual revolution. Guys are walking around meetings with these things hanging around their neck, these Hindu pictures on their face. You know what I mean? I mean, like, it was all sorts of weird higher powers people had, It was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, me and another guy started a club up in 202 Club in Pasadena. And there was this one Hindu guy that everybody was really hot for at that particular time. His name was Baba. Mero Baba was his name. Big chubby guy with a smile, you know what I mean? And so at that time I had a mustache, you know what I mean? And my hair was like, remember in the 60s? Like that. And we all wore, so what we did is we painted my picture on about 5 t-shirts. We passed it around and we put toilet, those little plungers for sink plungers. We put them on a chain around our neck and we went around saying, Al is Baba, you know what I mean? It was just like fun, it was fun. It was fun. So God gets off on us, you know what I mean? But we got to get off on ourselves, see? But we can't do that unless we become, I couldn't do that unless I begin to realize why I drank. I didn't drink because I could hardly wait. I didn't go to my counselor at Monrovia High School and say, oh, Mr. Manning, what classes do I take so I can end up being an alcoholic and go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting at Salvation Army in Honolulu? I didn't do that. I didn't do that. The reason I drank is the same reason I feel, like us, we're all the same, man. We're all God. We're all little extensions of God. That's what we are. You know what I mean? Just all, we're all God in drag. You know what I mean? We're all God pretending to be who we are. And the game is rigged. The dice of God is loaded. She cheats. We cannot lose. All we have to do is give up. See? But what do we give up? What do I have to give up? See? Well, I have to investigate. And so how do I investigate? The reason I drank is because I suffered. And the book talks about that. And what caused me to suffer? What caused me to suffer? What caused me to suffer was my old ideas. You've ever heard me talk, it's always the same thing. What caused me to suffer is what I chose to believe about myself. First thing I heard when I was a kid, very young, was whatever you do, don't hang around with Mexicans. Only my dad told me that. Only one thing wrong, my dad was a Mexican. Well, the idea, if you get the idea, what I got from that is that I am unworthy. So at a very young age, I began seeing myself as unworthy. The next thing that happened to me was I'm molested by my uncle. And I could never tell anybody that because it never happened to anybody in the world but only me. And I began seeing myself from that point of view. I began seeing myself as being unworthy because I was a sexually perverted Mexican. And so I was so obsessed, you know what I mean? I was so obsessed, I had such a role going on in being, such an investment in being unworthy that I collected more unworthiness. It was like a magnet. The next thing I heard, I was going to Catholic school. I heard that I was born in sin, that only through and I'm a sinner by nature, I'm a sinner, and only through the special dispensation of, I forget the guy's name, but by some guy who's going to come along and forgive, but you don't deserve to be forgiven. You don't deserve to, but you don't deserve. So I picked up, I'm a sinner too. See, here I'm a sexually perverted, sinning Mexican. So I check in school, and you know how we are. I mean, I've been sober 36 years, man, and I'm in the gym today. And I'm mindful now. I'm observant. And I look at other people and I say, and I start figuring, this guy weighs too much, that guy doesn't. What is this shit? Where is I don't want to go there. This is like mind garbage,
Well, see, what happens when you're a little kid, you're not aware of that because you're busy comparing yourself to other people and realizing all these kids are really nice. And I'm a sexually perverted semi-Mexican. Now, you would say that would cause a little suffering. But see, it's so gradual that you really don't know it. You feel so bad over such a gradual period of time that you don't know it. And what I do is I blame the other people for me thinking and feeling the way I think. As a matter of fact, I used to tell people I could go to a party and I could spot phonies. You know, I could spot them. I feel uncomfortable around them. That's how I could spot them. I feel uncomfortable around them. I was a while before I realized that the discomfort I was feeling was the messages I was giving myself when I would enter a neutral environment. If you go into an environment like this with a bunch of people and they're all running around having a good time, you say, your head says, here, what are you doing here, you sinning, sexual, perverted Mexican? You're going to say, oh, these people make me feel uncomfortable. That isn't it. It's what I choose to think that makes me feel uncomfortable. See, but you see, it took me, I'm not as smart as you guys, it took me a while to catch on to that. The reason it's important for me to know who I am and what I am, that who I am and what I am is an extension of God, is so I can stop defining myself based upon the things I've done in my life. You know, like I scratch my head, or I itch my ass, or I pick my nose. Does that mean I'm a head-scratching, ass-picking, ass-scratching, nose-picker? What are you laughing about, man? Does that mean that? No, that's not me. You understand, before I took my inventory, I would define myself. You understand, if you can see how important the inventory is, it's because I'm defining myself based upon the things or the failures I've done in my life. You know what I mean? I was sober 16 years, and I had worked for this company for 13 years, giving it all my heart, blood. I mean, I did everything, and it folded up. So what? That's what happened. That's what happened. So what gets to happen is we start again. What gets to happen is we start again. I don't judge myself. You understand, I don't define myself based upon anything I've done in my life. Because who I am is just like you guys. I'm an extension of God just like you guys. That's who I am. And I went over here and I picked my nose. I went over and scratched my ass. Went over here and I scratched my head. I folded up a company. I drove a car over here. I ride horses. I go to the gym. Now, what time do I become any of these things? I never become anything I do. Because who I am and what I am is an extension of God. See? What we need to do is to come home. See? Because we are all free by nature. You know, freedom isn't something to be achieved. You'll never achieve freedom. You'll never achieve freedom any more than you're going to be okay. You're never going to be okay. Guys I sponsor. Guys I sponsor, come here. Am I going to be okay? No. You're never going to be okay. Well, they say, well, what do you mean I'm never going to be? They say, well, how are you now? I'm okay now. Well, how about now? Well, I'm okay now. Well, how about now? Well, I'm okay now. Well, how about now? I'm okay now. Well, how about tomorrow? Well, you know, I've been thinking about that. You know what I See? You know, it's thinking. You know, what happens is, you know why people are afraid? You know why people are afraid? It's because they think thoughts that scare them. They're busy thinking. You know, we're a funny lot. We're busy thinking about the things we don't want to have happen to us. You know what I mean? Busy thinking about the circumstances we don't want to have happen in our life, and then we want to know why we feel bad. I went to Overeaters Anonymous. I was sober, you know, I was sober 5 years, and I quit smoking, and I went over 225 pounds. I checked into OA. I was in OA for 6 months, and I found this out, that it's going to be heavy for Malibu. I don't know if you can get it, but there's a relationship between what you eat and what you weigh. There's identically the same relationship between what you think and how you feel. All the time. Feelings do not precede thinking. So we need to come home. We need to come home. The steps will lead us, will allow us. What they do, see, what causes me not to be free is the things I cling to. See, I'm clinging to this podium. This podium won't let me go. You know what I mean? And so it's not allowing me to be free. This podium is not allowing me to be free. But it isn't. The podium's got nothing to do with it. It's my choice. What I cling to this podium. Cling to this podium. My choice is what made me a prisoner. My clinging, my hand holding on here, the clinging is what's making me not free. So what I do is when I let go, I'm set free. How do I let go? I need to come home. I need to come home. I need to find a power greater than myself and realize that she totally loves me, totally supports me, and it does it right now in this very moment. In this very moment, and here's another moment, this very moment, here's another moment, and it's right now and now. There's a story in India about this guy. When a little child is born, they go over to the child's ear and they whisper in the ear, "Remember. Remember." Then when somebody dies, they go over to his ear and they whisper, "Remember. Remember." There's a story about this couple. That had a baby. And they had a little girl also around 6 years old. And the mother brought the baby home. She brought the baby home. And the little child and the little 6-year-old girl said, "Oh, can I go talk to the baby? I want to be by myself and talk to the baby." They said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You're too young." And she kept begging and begging and begging and begging. And eventually they yielded. But they wanted to find out what was going on. What was it? That it's so important that this girl had to talk to the baby alone. So they listened against the door. And the little girl went in there and she told the baby, she says, "Remind me, I'm starting to forget. Remind me. Help me remember, I'm starting to forget. Help me to remember, I'm starting to forget." These steps will return us. And I thank you.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.